In our modern, fast-paced lives, it is easy to become disconnected from the wonders that surround us. But when we take a moment to step outside and immerse ourselves in nature's embrace, we are reminded of the immense power and perfection that exist beyond our human creations. Witness the dance of colorful flowers gracefully swaying in the breeze as if nature itself were rejoicing in their existence.
I might be living in Silicon Valley today, but most people don't know that I grew up on a farm in my childhood. I grew up playing on a farm, doing all farm boy kind of things. And today I'm back in that same farm and I want to give you a tour of it. So come join me. Growing up and even today, we do not necessarily get a lot of vegetables from the market here. We get some essentials like onion and things like that we can't grow, but we grow most of the core vegetables that we use in our kitchen here in my parents' kitchen garden. This one, for example, this is actually Malabar spinach. We call it basale in our local Kannada here as well as Tulu. Very, very nutritious if you're having heat problems and stuff like that. This is really good. I really like the taste of the curries and the palyas we make from this. Let's move on to the next plant. I want to show you this one here. You might recognize this one pretty well. It's the good old brinjal, or not necessarily eggplant. This is the round brinjal that we have, the green ones. And the thing with this is, if you do not keep adding some dust on its leaves, it'll suffer from some insect problems, and it just makes holes. So we keep adding dust on this. That used to be one of my tasks growing up, putting dust on the leaves of these plants. But really, really yummy, homegrown, completely organic, no fertilizer brinjal is what we pluck from this, and it goes straight into our kitchen. So this is the brinjal flower here, and this one grows over time and becomes a big brinjal vegetable. So we need to take care of the flowers, especially when they are young, because there's a lot of peacocks that come here and start eating the flowers, start eating all the seeds. So we need to keep the peacocks away from this place as well. Chasing peacocks was also another task of mine growing up. This plant here is a creeper. It's called Tindora. It's also called Tinde in Hindi. It's called Tondeka in Kannada, or ivy gourd in English. Another delicious vegetable we use with garbanzo beans or chickpeas. And it makes for a very local dish here called kadle manoli in Tulu. It's just started flowering now, this plant, but very soon we'll get, actually there are tindoras here that you can see fully grown, almost ready to pluck in a few weeks, I guess. It's almost impossible to see the tindoras, so you'll need to look very carefully, or else you'll see a lot of them rotting on the plant itself. Come, let's check out the other side where we have a lot more plants. Oh wait, actually, we have more brinjal here, It's gonna be a ton of brinjals this season, I guess. In between the brinjals, you can see this. This is actually tulsi, or holy basil, as we would call it. Very, very, very good antibacterial. It's good to eat 5 or 6 leaves every morning. Really good. Another good thing to do is put a couple of leaves of tulsi into a water bottle. It purifies the water because the leaves are antibacterial in nature. I used to do it all the time. In the US, we do get tulsi leaves as well, which I do from time to time. I put it in the water bottle in the morning, and the water stays super fresh throughout the day. Oh, look, this is my good friend Kadi Patta, curry leaves. This tree here is a chiku tree, or sapota, I guess it's called. Actually, there's a lot of sentimental value here because this tree was about this big. It got planted and it grew up as I was growing up as well. So there's a lot of sentimental connection with this tree. You can see a lot of chiku flowers here, and it's already started fruiting. Almost every other day there is a chiku milkshake that mom makes at home these days. So this is another one of my favorites, quite underrated actually, because it's like a weed. You would just plant it, it will just keep growing. People call it bay leaves here, but I don't know if it's like really bay leaf or not, because it doesn't look anything like the bay leaf we get in the US. But you just put this much in rice, white rice, when you're boiling white rice, cooking white rice, and the aroma that the white rice gets after that, it's just heavenly. So that's why this is one of my favorites. You smell it like this, you don't necessarily, it just smells like any other leaf, but inside of white rice when it is boiling with it, this changes the game forever. Like I said, we have a ton of mango trees on the property. Here is one. This one hasn't started fruiting or flowering yet, but it will soon be. This is another chiku tree. Look at all the chiku cheers. Gotten quite a bunch. One of the things that happens when you pick a chiku is you think that it'll just come right off, but then you get all this like white milky stuff which keeps dripping. It's called sonne in our Kannada. But yeah, that just messes you up completely. And then some of the sonne, when it hits clothing, it'll produce a permanent stain which doesn't go away like even after washing. So you gotta be careful when you pick a chiku. Oh, I forgot to mention the good old humble papaya up here. We have a papaya plant. Actually, we have many papaya plants. We often have papaya juice being made and papaya being included in all sorts of fruit salads that we have at home. But there it is, a bunch of papayas, on their way to becoming ripe. Not to forget, we have a ton of flowering plants here. I'm not going to go into the description of the flowers because it will take 2 full videos and I don't want to bore you with all those details, but this is my mom loves flowers. Actually, my dad has the most greenest thumb in the entire family. Anything that he plants just survives and thrives actually. A lot of you might already know this. This is called the Tulsi Katte. It's a place where we have holy basil, which is a symbol of extreme medicinal benefits and a plant that is very well regarded, or it's very respected and treated holy in Hinduism. So that's where we do our Tulsi Puja every year during Diwali as well. This is the well that we use for all household purpose, water consumption for all household purposes. One of my key jobs growing up was to pull water from this well that we use for drinking. And let's recreate that scene today. Let me show you how water is pulled out of the well. I hope you don't know. This is the container we use. put the rope around it, tie the rope like that, and then bend it down. So the thing is, you let it stay. If you let it stay like this, it will just stay upright. But you let it stay like that, and it will slowly fill up with water and start drowning. But you can't wait forever. So when it fills half, pick it up and then drop it in, and it will fill fully. And then you go in for a workout. This is a really good workout in the morning to pull water like that. And then we have a full bucket of water. That's how it's done. Now this water is so pure that you can literally drink it. Nothing better than this. You ain't seen nothing yet, so let's show you a lot more of the property. We have a ton of coconut trees as well. Oh, here. Which is my that small sugarcane cluster here. Sugarcane used to be one of the easiest things to grow, but these days somehow there are squirrels eating it up as well. I don't know why squirrels start liking sugar all of a sudden, but it grows up like bamboo to a certain height, and then we just cut it and eat it. Really good organic sugarcane out there. Here's another mango tree, another kadifatta tree behind it, a bunch of coconut trees. Now let me tell you about this spot. What was this spot used to? I'm going to show you the rice paddy farms that we had, or the fields that we had and have even now. And we used to manually cut all the rice hay out there, bring it in heaps, and then we used to put like a bench over here with a sort of kamba or a pole that's called meti kamba. And we used to tie it to that and just hit the hay with the grains on the bench until the rice grain fell down. And then we used to collect all the rice grains and give it to the mill and make rice out of it. And that's the rice that we consume. In fact, we had more rice than we can possibly consume. And we used to sell quite a bit of rice as well. Back when we used to grow rice 2 times a year out here in this farm, which I'll show you in a bit. This used to be a cowshed when we had a lot of cattle. Now we've changed it a little bit and made it into like a small staff quarters kind of thing. But let me show you some of the remnants of the cowshed that we have, or back from our core farming days. This is a very traditional roof that you can find in South India, but like especially in coastal Karnataka. All these are wood that is put across, and then earthen tiles on top. Keeps it really cool during the summers and protects it against the elements as well. Very bare bones, but a lot of character in this thing. Oh, here, it's not present here right now, but you can see that there was something over here. There was a big pot, a copper pot, along with a wooden stove underneath. We used to get cattle feed from the government called oki in local language. I don't know what it's exactly called, but we used to make a shake, for the lack of a better word, a shake for the cows, which is very nutrient rich with the cattle feed that the government used to send us. We had to boil it and then cool it and then feed the cows that. So we had a big stove here literally for that when we had to feed like 4 or 5 cows at once. This is the bench I'm talking about out there, which we used to tie it to the meti kamba or the central poles out there in the yard. And this is called hadi mancha in our language. Mancha is of course a bench, and hadi, I don't know what hadi actually translates to, but like this is used to extract the grains from the full rice plant after it is dried up. This wall is something that is new, but then I want to explain these walls to you. This is completely made out of soil. It's made out of mud with a thin layer of cement on the outside, and it does last a long time. Of course, there's sign of wear and tear in it, but I'm simply amazed by how people built homes back then, full homes that were only made of mud or soil. We used to use this room specifically to store a lot of coconut. Now we kind of contract the coconut far out, so there's other people that come in and process everything and take it on their own. But one of the things that I used to do was take the coconut, put it in what we call a headgate, a big container where you put all the coconuts in from the farm and take it on top of your head and dump it wherever the storage is, because the coconut should not be exposed to a ton of rain after it is taken out from the tree. And this is an old style door here. You close the door, lock this down, and then this entire room becomes kind of like a bucket. You can throw all of the coconut here, and then once the coconut is all done, you just put it there and lock this up, and it stays nice and dark and safe in this room. And this room's primary goal was to serve as the rice room, where we used to take all the raw rice, all the batta that we call the rice with the husk on, before it used to go to the mill. Of course, that also should not be exposed to the rain. We used to dump it all in this room, and then it used to stay there until the mill processing season came, and we used to process it in there. This is a traditional sickle that you can find in Udupi and Dakshin Kannada districts for sure. Maybe you can find it all over Karnataka and all over South India as well. But I predominantly saw this growing up. It's made of a blacksmith-made, very sharp, curved piece of metal like that. And then pure wood. Most of the time, this is bamboo-made handle, which is also completely made in the village here. And then how do we sharpen this? By the way, this is used to cut anything ranging from the grown-up rice to some fruits off the tree. You also use this to cut fish. And people from Bangalore, you might know something called machuk, have this maybe in like a holster. I'll show you a holster in which people keep the katti. Anyway, let's talk about this equipment here. So this equipment was actually in its original state, but then it got worn out. So we had to add this new piece of wood here. But how do you sharpen this katti, right? You take stones that you get like this that kind of look like crystals. It's available pretty much everywhere. It's just lying around. And then you break this until there is like a fine powder made, and then you do this. So the powder from the stone acts as a sand for this to sharpen our copper, and then you do this a bunch of times, and then your katti becomes so sharp that it can cut pretty much everything. It's not even summer yet here, but it's so humid that I'm already sweating like crazy. Have you ever seen a pineapple grow on a plant? This is a pineapple plant. You can see small, cute-ass, tiny pineapples there, and then you can see one that is already on its way to maturity. That's how pineapples grow. Now we have entered our formal coconut farm here. My dad likes planting trees in between coconuts that actually improve the productivity of the land as well. So you can see a mango tree out here. There's small mangoes being formed right there that you can see already. This is called Mavina Midi here in our place. And then he has planted a bunch of papaya trees here, along with a ton of banana here. We get banana clusters pretty much every other day. Some of it we sell, a lot of it we eat ourselves as well. There's a lot of things that's made out of banana at our home, like of course the raw banana, but like also fruit salads, the rasayana, which is like a banana shake, along with a lot of other like elaichi, cardamom, and things like that. You might wonder is, where do we get all this water from? Is there enough water for us to grow all the trees that I'm about to show you? Let me show you where the water comes from. We have one big well, one of two irrigation wells. We have one well for the home that's only dedicated for the tank. And then this is the first of two irrigation wells that we have. It's pretty deep. It's connected to about a 5 HP pump. I think one good thing about coastal Karnataka, especially Udupi and Dakshin Kannada districts, I'm not exactly sure if it is like true of all districts in Karnataka, but the government gives the electricity for irrigation purposes for free. So we can water the coconut trees as much as we possibly want. Of course, that's an optimal point. We shouldn't water it more than a certain point. Then the tree starts to drown. But it's a good perk because you can get all of this water and you don't need to pay the bill for the electricity, and we can all become prosperous farmers here. Every year we get a good bunch of new soil as well, because the soil that the coconut trees have underneath, fertility of it keeps reducing, or the nutritional value of it keeps reducing. It's not good to always add a lot of urea or a lot of artificial fertilizer. So we, from time to time, when we find good soil, we get this soil in loads from outside, and we also get cow dung, chicken poop fertilizer as well from outside, and we save it so that we can fertilize our trees from time to time. It happens once a year, once every 2 years, so that the yield in the coconuts remains strong. We have about 2 fields here and 1 field on the other side. I'll give you a quick primer how this was traditionally done. We used to have a small section of this field cordoned off, and it was called the agedi. Agedi means that's where you throw the seeds and then let the seeds germinate to give rise to rice plants. It's so dense, and then you pluck it out and replant it with a certain distance from each plant to the other throughout the field. And that's why whenever you see a paddy field, you can see extremely straight lines. It's not because it was planted like that to begin with. It's because there was a dense agedi that was done and then replanted over here. That's another technique we use called bittane, I guess. What we do there is we control the way the seeds are dropped, and we drop it in a straight line. In that practice, we don't really need the agedi or the nursery, so to speak. While the direct bittane technique is less labor intensive, one of the negative effects of it is that you do not get to select which one is a good plant, which one is not a good plant. So your field generally has that probability issue of like, okay, what is the general yield of the whole field itself? Versus in an agedi technique, you can pick which one is good and you can just discard the ones that are not good, visibly not good, and then you know at least that all the plants that went into your field are of good quality. Behind me, you can see our arachnet plantation. This is also called supari in Hindi. It goes to make like pan masala and all sorts of things that is arachnet based. But it also goes to make certain medicines as well. Arachnet is also a type of a palm, but it doesn't grow as thick as the coconut palm, meaning the tree is not as big. So you can have much more density in per unit area in case of the arachnet. And arachnet usually has a much more fluctuating price, both up and down, mostly up in the recent years, but especially in the recent years post-lockdown. So people prefer to plant a lot more arachnet these days than coconut because of the quick growth, more revenue per square foot, etc., etc., etc. You might see this and wonder what this actually is. This is actually spider webs and then dew in the morning that drops on our entire field, of course, and then the spider webs catch it nicely and it produces this cottony, sugar candy-ish pattern, which is pretty interesting to see actually. This is a coconut leaf. You see how it looks? You might have seen a lot of this. On the other hand, this is an arachnet leaf. And this is very interesting because this is the part that stays with the tree, and this is the part that hangs out. This is the palm side. This part though, it's called the hale. We have a lot of use that we put this to. First off, you can see traditional hats being made of farmers that wear this. Secondly, this is exported a lot these days because it's used to make disposable plates that we use in different sort of functions, etc., etc. So there is an arachnet leaf for you. Most people that come here are really interested to know why the soil is totally a different color. This soil here is like more red. It's like, chicken tandoori red almost. And the reason it's so red is because it has a lot of iron oxide here. Unlike on the Deccan Plateaus, you have a lot of black soil, which I don't know, is it because of like volcanic ash from long ago or something, but it's very rich soil for cotton kind of cultivation. Cotton doesn't necessarily grow here, but this soil is very fertile for coconut, supari, rice, everything of that sort. So that's the reason you'll see a lot of red soil here in Udupi and Dakshin Kannada. You should keep a note of that when you visit next. You'll see structures like this, mostly abandoned if you visit a farm in Udupi and Dakshin Kannada these days. Nowadays, you have a lot of irrigation systems that work on a direct pipeline into the trees itself. But back then, what we used to do is we used to have channels made on the soil itself. Very inefficient though, because it drinks up a lot of water in itself. But channels made on the soil that goes into trees and then waters the tree. So the water would come up from that pump. It would come into this small reservoir that we have through this pipe. And then once this reservoir overflows, it would go out into the coconut trees from here. This is the inlet, so to speak. And a funny story here is there used to be a lot of frogs here. And as a child, I used to come here. Once I was playing with my cousins over here and I just fell into it. I was like this small, of course. And then I fell totally into it and I drank a bunch of water and swam with a few frogs in there. And then that's the end of it. I never came near it until today. And now it's very nostalgic because I see it and it's totally dry. And I have so many memories of this space as well as a child. Recently, we had a big lightning storm. The lightning struck two of our trees here. You can see there is nothing on top of that tree. It's just a standing bar. We have some very harsh lightning storms. And the sad part is, like, once you lose trees like this, of course, you put a lot of love, care, water, fertilizer, all of this in growing them to, to that height in about 25, 30, 40 years. And one tree lot in its lifetime is about a few lakhs of rupees lost, because that's what one tree produces in over its lifetime. Also considering the amount of expense it takes in terms of fertilizers and water and stuff like that. When you walk around in a coconut plantation, you can see small coconuts like this. You might wonder what this is. When a coconut is like super young, it is very prone to a lot of diseases. And once it gets some diseases, it becomes weak and it falls off in this form. So the more coconuts you see falling off like this, the more it is a sign of there being certain diseases, certain insects, infections up there in the plant, which you need to address. Sometimes monkeys come and they eat up the coconuts, the raw coconuts. They drink tender coconut water, and in the process of plucking, they pluck small ones like this and just throw it out. And that's a monkey manners. Dakshin Kannada and Udupi districts are called Parashurama Shrishti, and that also means that in this region, the serpent deity, the Naga Devate, is worshipped the most. So much so that pretty much every piece of land or every property has one or the other forms of a serpent deity that they worship. This is ours back here. We've made a nice little shrine for the serpent deity, and let me show you that. This here is a temporary gate structure. Not really temporary, but it's like a gate structure not necessarily made for humans, but for cattle. Because we have a lot of cattle grazing around in other properties and stuff that might come here and start eating our vegetables and whatnot. So we, from time to time, in different areas, we have temporary structures like this that just prevent them from jumping across. This road is kind of like a divider. It's actually our property, but like it's an easement that we give for public good. But let's move to the other side where I can show you a lot of other plantation as well as woods we have that brings a lot of memories from back when I was a kid. So sweaty, so hot. Out here, it was a pretty dense forest before, but now we've planted a good bunch of cashew to extract good economic value from the land here. And I think we have about 2 or 3 more years until these cashews start producing nuts, and we can then sell it and put the land to some good use.
In our modern, fast-paced lives, it is easy to become disconnected from the wonders that surround us. We often find ourselves consumed by the noise and the chaos of our man-made structures, oblivious to the remarkable beauty that lies just beyond our doorsteps. But when we take a moment to step outside and immerse ourselves in nature's embrace, we are reminded of the immense power and perfection that exist beyond our human creations. Observe the symphony of birdsong filling the air with melodies that uplift our spirits and remind us of the harmonious rhythms of life.
Who doesn't like some yummy mangoes all the time? We have mango trees all over the property here, which I'll show you in a bit. But this grew up with me. This was this big when, I first saw it being planted. And today it's this big a tree. It's not really mango season so far. It's just flowering now. Maybe in a couple months it's more mango season. And I can clearly see that there's going to be a lot more mangoes this year that's going to get, This is not even a mango tree.
That's what I'm thinking.
This
It's
is not
too
mango
short.
tree. Mango tree is there.
Yeah.
This is chiku.
Chiku. Retake, Chiku.